live under threats of America. Nah, not in my generation. Kill me if you can. I think the world can do better without America, but America can't do without us. The religious world, the Abrahamic faith, namely Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, have given us a new problem. And the problem is Israel. Zionism. This ideology of the specialness, the remnant theology as they call it, the chosen theology, which becomes very fundamental in the Christian theological space. And it deliberately, intentionally or unintentionally creates animosity and war with Islam. And Christianity becomes a sideliner. And all these Abrahamic faiths having their genesis in Abraham, as it were. The war of Ishmael and Isaac, if the Bible is true for what it says, that the enmity is not a present generation war. It's something that is its roots in the theological space. And this war has been going on for centuries, if not forever. The modern generation is confronted with a new problem altogether. Number one, the theological veracity of that theology in itself, having been usurped into what we now call an Ashkenazi theology, where the Turkish converted into Judaism, into Eastern Europeans who converted into Judaism, to now become the core of what we call Israeli nation. With their history, of course, seated in the Holocausts of Germany, because historically speaking, Africa is not a white state. Africa is black. Historically speaking, Egypt is black. Palestine is black. And how do we end up with a whole group of Eastern Europeans coming into Africa and claiming to be Jews with blue eyes and blonde hair? As a theologian, that is misinterpretation and extra extrapolation of scripture, which plays its way into the political hand of the skills of these Ashkenazis and Turkish people who moved into Europe to form the Jewish community, taking over the economy of Germany and taking over the banks of America, the insurance companies, becoming some of the most powerful religious, economic, financial houses of the world. It is that influence that gives them power over the American government to lobby, to pay, to choose the leaders that they want. Interesting for young students to go back and find out when these Jews were being brought back to Africa, what were the options of their resettlement. That information is free on the internet. They even chose Uganda as a possible option, somewhere here in the Serengetis. Even Zimbabwe was considered at one time. And so they were looking for a place where to go and place this group of people. And ultimately, Palestine was chosen as a place where this history will be situated. So the Israel of the Bible and the Israel of the 1960s, which was 1947, which was actually put in Palestine, does not have its sitting within the historical background. For history will tell you that the Garden of Eden was between the mountain of fire, the mountain of the moons, and the great river Nile. Where else would you find that description except Kilimanjaro, the Kisi land, the Kasese, the Sese Nelubale? To date, the most populated place which has animals is the Serengeti. It would be totally theologically mischievous to consider that a desert somewhere in North Africa, which you now call Middle East, could be considered to be a Garden of Eden, which does not even have a flower, nor a tree, nor a flowing river. It's theological mischief at its best. The naming of rivers and etc., and the recreation of that history around the Middle East remains as a theological debate for another day. But politically speaking, the position of Israel right now has a wrong color on it. Let me be blatant. The wrong color. Israel has a wrong color. I was there. The indigenous people of Israel are actually black people. The nomads of Israel, they are still there. And you then look at the political hand when it dresses itself in the glove of politics to create this state of Israel, which is basically a mini America away from America, a headquarters of money laundering, headquarters. All the monies that come out from America heading into Israel to protect it are all coming through lobbying groups and etc. The president who gets there must approve military budgets and etc. And the military budgets are being pushed towards the businessmen of America, who then buy the weapons and move them to Israel, sulking and pulling money out of the American government. And taxpayers are actually paying for the war in Israel. The technologies, the experiments that are happening, funded by America, but having a state in Israel. Unfortunately, we need to start dealing with this mask. Who is hiding behind this mask that we call Israel? Who are the funders of this ideology we call Israel? Slowly, through social media and modern forms of education, are we beginning to see the double standards of the American government? Israel is allowed to have nuclear weapons in the Middle East. But Israel is not a member of NATO. Why? Because through Israel, America can manage the Middle East. And these double standards we're talking about are a blatant insult of sovereignty. Because if America is allowed to have nuclear weapons, why must Iraq not have them? Why must North Korea not have them? Why must Libya or South Africa not have them? You must sign a special treaty with America before you can produce nuclear weapons, or before you can actually improve on your uranium. Even for power, countries must go through constringent processes of how simply to burn uranium and make electricity. And yet you know that 1 kg of uranium is far much more than tons and tons of coal. And yet you talk about green energy on the other side. But here is safer energy. But once you start culturing uranium, the possibility of also making it into nuclear weapons becomes very evident. These double standards of America and NATO, of preferential treatment of Israel over other Middle East and the rest of the governments around the world, is proving very fatal, because the mask is falling off. There is favoritism that the world is now very clear as far as the American policies towards Israel and the American policies towards other states and sovereign countries around the world. What does that mean, therefore? It is that Israel is a mini America And Netanyahu was heard even one of them saying, he is the president of America. And whichever is the president of America must also be a president of Israel. In other words, you cannot be a president of the United States of America without considering the policies of Israel as some of your priority policies, that Israel must be protected at all costs. Why? Because it sits at the door of the oil production, which feeds into the vein of the whole world and the American economy. And Israel is a security officer for the Middle East to let that happen. Now, with the coming up of new information, re-education of the whole world, slowly but surely we are now becoming conscious of the reality that this theological mindset playing its way into the theological framework has created a new headache on the world, where the CIA and the Mossad of Israel are back-to-back twins who run the governments of the world through intelligence, technology, agriculture, this and that, to have a surveillance around the face of the world. And this has caused the wars, even as we are looking at Ukraine. It is the relationship of Israel and Iraq and the favoritism of America winking its eye when Israel demolishes Gaza to rubble. Big mouths about human rights. Big mouths about starvation. Big mouths about sovereignty of countries on policy. As early as last week, Netanyahu was escalating his views on Gaza that will bring it to rubble, will bring it to nothing. That's not where the politics is. When China talks Taiwan, why are you worried as Americans? When Russia talks Ukraine, why are you worried as Americans? Because the precedence of Gaza, the sovereignty of the Palestinians, and the sovereignty of the Palestinian state remains to be questioned. Here are people you found on the land when you arrived in 1947. They were here. And don't buy this rubbish of Islam versus Christian or Islam versus Judaism. It's not true. Go to the imams in the Islamic space. They will tell you, we and these people used to live together. Is it not funny when I was in Jerusalem to actually find that parts of the sacred Jewish state, the keys are being kept by Muslims? Because these are their sites. They open the doors to the Christians and the Jews to access those spaces because the custodians of these venues are the indigenous people. The very place where Jesus is said to have been buried and etc., the key to that door is in the hand of an Muslim. The door to the Great Wall where you pray, the key is being held by a Muslim. They lived together in harmony. It's not true that the Muslims and the indigenous Jews of Palestine were ever in war in whatever way, until this group of white people came into that territory. Did the Western hegemony and the Western policies, the Hamas, the Al-Qaedas, the Osama bin Laden's, and all these people, you read between the lines, they are all fully sponsored. What kind of hypocrisy can the world put up with when we can now see behind the curtain and see that we are meant to hate each other on the basis of economic and political expediency? And if America wants war, why fight it in Israel? Why not take it to New York? Why not take the war to Los Angeles? Why not take the war to Washington, D.C. and fight the war on your own grounds? Why would you have wars all over the world except on your own shores? Now, this hypocrisy for me, if we don't manage the political interests of America in the Middle East and the use of Israel as a security officer over that state, the Middle East will never know peace. Saudi Arabia this side, Syria this side, Iraq is this side, Iran this side. It's one big religion. One big religion, all of the Muslims. At peace with each other. They may have their own small little wars, but it is nothing immaterial. We all have wars in Mexico. We all have wars in Africa. But immediately put the American interests in Israel, which, by the way, do not respect other religions because of their spiritual background. Again, I come back to my subject. If Africa does not sign the LGBTQ, we will not do business with you. Sign here, Museveni. Sign here, Mugabe. Sign here, Ramaphosa. Sign here. If not, no loans. Putting you on sanctions because of what? Oh, hallelujah. We like that policy. But immediately they go to Saudi Arabia. Immediately they go to Dubai, which are Islamic capitals, where people are butchered and slaughtered, killed, shot at, beheaded for lesbians and gay practices. America goes to those countries and acts like a mute mule. Mule. They can't say a word. So maybe we've learned that money talks. And those that have financial muscles can always determine their own politics. But the politics of Israel is setting a wrong precedence around the whole world. If America allows Israel to demolish Gaza, it must shut up when Russia demolishes Ukraine. It must shut up when China demolishes Taiwan. It must shut up when South Africa demolishes Orania. It must shut up when any other country sees a threat at its doorstep and behaves exactly the same. Well, there's nowhere in the world where the world has agreed that America must become the head boy of our own destruction. Their policies and their moral ethics are not homogeneous with all of us. We don't agree with everything that they're doing. We have never forced them to practice African culture. There's no way where they must force us to practice their own culture. I think Israel, in the hand of America, has become a tool of destruction rather than a venue of historical Christian appreciation. How will this war between Israel and the Middle East end? I'll put it in classification. Classification number one, it will end in conversation and in agreement. Diplomatic conversations, best option ever. And a correction of the historical editing that has been happening and allow people to be. My grandmother had a very good technique. That's option number two. When two kids are fighting, then she will go and cut two pieces of stick or wood and whips. Give you one, give you the other one. Now she's watching and says, now beat each other up. Or she says to this one, beat him. And you beat him. And then both of you are crying. Then she finishes up and says, okay, no more fighting. You cannot talk peace if you're not prepared for war. Sooner or later, this whole aminosity will explode into something. And between me and you, if America does not intervene, the Arab states that surround Israel can put Israel to the ground and support their own brothers who are the Palestinians. They have a religious tie together. How will it end? The United Nations and the external bodies that have been supporting this genocide might want to come out clean and say, how do we resolve and uphold the principles of democracy as we have been expounding them? Ultimately, World War III could be another result, where Israel must gather her friends together and the Palestinians will gather their friends together. We're back to square one again, where Russia has to make a decision, North Korea has to make a decision, China has to make a decision, and then the war of the world would be fought. But I have good news for you as Africans. When these enemies of our success are at war, please stay away. Because the Third World War will not only be guns and grenades. It has escalated to nuclear. And once these weapons are used, mark my words, those grounds will be not habitable for 150 to 200 years. Some of those uranium, radioactive material scattered on the ground. Their waters will be polluted. Their grounds will be polluted. They will give birth to crippled children. The air will be poisoned. And I think Africa will start realizing her full potential of being a breadbasket and a refugee camp. Should World War III strike, be prepared as Africa to become a refugee camp of people who will be running away from their own countries because those places have become totally polluted. What you used to see in sci-fi movies, in the event of a nuclear explosion, that will become a reality. If you don't believe what I'm saying, walk up to Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Walk up and see the hospitals. Walk up and see deformed children that are walking the face of that earth. Will America and the world ever go there and do an assessment of the hydrogen bombs? And that was old technology, by the way. Very old technology, which was done by Oppenheimer. Then we've gone 100 steps ahead in terms of fatality of our weapons. When you hear the Satan and the demolishing weapons, those red-nosed North Korean missiles that can travel for 5,000 miles, 2,700 miles, with enough impact to destroy 150, 200 kilometer radius in terms of pollution of air, water, any living thing, plant, crop, and people and animal. And we want to tamper with this World War III. America wants to run around like a cowboy, shooting in the air, threatening everybody. And I think this is what makes the world unsafe. Because once you see another man with a gun, threatening your wife and children, what makes you think that I won't also go next door and start looking for a gun? Next time you pull yours, will I not also be ready to pull mine and say, oh, boss, you're not the only one who has this gun? So maybe the only language that America understands is violence. And it's said that if America should make all of us like it, we'll have lost our sense of humanity. For eye for an eye and tooth for tooth, we'll leave the whole world toothless and blind. I'm glad we're still human, some of us, that we cannot be spending our money buying weapons and guns when they are more important humanitarian. There's enough space for everybody. There's enough land for everybody. The whole of Israel can fit in Nigeria, can fit in Namibia, can fit in Zimbabwe. All of it, all the people. Alaska is empty, right up into the Eskimos, beyond the border, beyond the NATO border of restriction to Gondwana, if there's a land beyond the Iceland. There's enough land in Mongolia. There's enough land in the Sahara and in the Kalahari deserts. Why would people be fighting over small little pieces of estate? It's greed, political expediency. And if we do not love each other enough to protect each other, human beings will become destructive to themselves. I've said it as a theologian many times. Our generation has reached moments now where we don't need the devil to come and destroy us. We are good enough to destroy ourselves with our own greed. And these very weapons that we are manufacturing, these very weapons that we flaunt, will become the demise of the human civilization. And by the way, what kind of a human being wakes up in the morning, a whole father, a whole mother who has given birth to a child, who goes to work to go and produce weapons, bombs, to kill other people? You go to work every morning, and your business is to look for technology that can exterminate human life. Are you okay? Are you normal? Must we count you amongst human beings? Or maybe we need to start looking at the American spirit. What is this obsession with getting rid of other people, reducing other people's population, minimizing the population. We don't have enough resources. These are all propaganda missionaries. There is enough water. And one generation is being born, another generation is dying. There's enough space. There's enough raw material. There's enough oxygen for everybody. So this whole propaganda that comes into space, we don't have enough of this. By 20 what, we'll have none. And even Bill Gates the other day was heard saying in 2026, 2020, in the autumn of what, a new virus is coming up. Like really? What instrument did you use to look into the future and see a bacteria that is coming? How will it end? Someone will die. And between me and you, human beings will come and go. The world will remain. Even without us, Mother Earth will continue to survive. She has seen many who came here and thinking they could conquer her. No, she will rise up again. And when human beings don't respect nature and then respect the mother, they pollute her, they abuse her, they intoxify her, they do etc. When she finally gets fed up, disasters, human disasters, natural disasters, imbalances of air and water and etc., Mother Earth will clean us up again. She will breed another generation that will respect her. If Palestine is exterminated, then all of us are not safe. What will be the position of Africa and some of our African presidents who stand in support of Israel instead of support of the Palestinians? And what has been the response of the world to South Africa taking Israel to the Hague? Interesting, because immediately South Africa took that case to the Hague, then there are impending sanctions on South Africa from America. Isn't that interesting? That you're taking Israel to the Hague, but then America is putting you on sanctions. As they say, sometimes beat the dog until the owner comes out. So what is the interest of America in the court case of Israel within the Hague? Then you understand that the owners of the product are feeling threatened. The African leaders, most of them who stand in support of Israel, one, they've not gone through apartheid. And I'm glad South Africa took that position because they went through segregation themselves. Yasser Arafat, in his life, stood in support of Nelson Mandela and the liberation of South Africa. And there's no way a liberated South Africa can turn their backs on Palestine because of the support that they had. But these religious pastors who have polluted the minds of our presidents, and again giving them that preference that Israel is superior, religiously they make those allegiances to Israel. But you can tell me, when they make those conclusions, tell me one of those presidents who went back to his parliament and asked for permission or asked for a vote or a debate on the Israeli issue. Then you find that some of these leaders, once they're in power, they take their own personal belief systems and they project them to the world as if their countries support what they believe in. And I think this is an abuse of power because we don't seem to understand how power works and how consultative governments work. That some presidents feel that if they get the voice of the people that opposes their position, then they'll lose their influence with the West. So we have presidents who are now making decisions in isolations and putting their countries in jeopardy. And I think you, as Kenyans, of all people, you have experienced Ruto at those levels, where his decisions as an individual have had a direct impact on you as a nation. And this is not only Ruto. A dozen of African presidents have done the same. Here is Biya, living in Paris for 7 to 8 months of the year, and the country is being run by ambassadors of France in Cameroon. The question is, when he was going to live in Cameroon, was that decision passed in Parliament? That our president will be running from there. He is Guinea president. The collapse of that temple in France, The whole president donates 25, 30 million euros to repairing a Gothic sexual temple in France. When his own people don't have roads, they don't have medicine, they don't have infrastructure. The question is, did he pass that decision in parliament? Or because he's a president and he's been abusing state funds, and he's got access to those funds, he can wake up in the morning and decide what to do. And not only that, African presidents. I think I like Trump somewhere. He's got some African tendencies also of just waking up in the morning and making decisions. I bet you some of these things that Trump is saying, if they could go through parliament or go through the Congress, I doubt how many of those decisions will make past the nostrils. But now we know. You just wake up in the morning as a president, you are told, sign here, sign here, sign here. But we have not been told where these decisions were actually approved in the Congress. Then you ask yourself, who is really the president of America? Who is really the one in power? Who is controlling this man? And now we've learned from Israel that whatever you're seeing happening in Israel is happening behind the closed doors of America. And whatever is happening in America is happening behind closed doors in Israel. So these people are in conversations, discussing the strategies of how to manage the world. It's unfortunate, through propaganda and misinformation, people inherit enemies that they don't know. You are told to hate this. Hence, when I left the Christian space, I lost many enemies, including the devil, including Catholics. They're no longer my enemies, including Muslims. They're no longer my enemies. But when I was within the Christian space, I was told, no. The Catholic Church is the beast. These ones are the devil. This one is what? Man, you wake up with all this burden of people that you must hate in life, even if they've done you nothing. And I think politically so, your allegiance to one superpower creates enemies, which sometimes is not necessary. And we cannot be caught up in this vicious global conversation without correct interrogations of the systems that cause them. And I think on the Israel story, I will pack it there, that let's find our areas of common interest if we should come together. It's a call for Africa. It's a call for the global world. We cannot live under threats of America. Nah, not in my generation. Kill me if you can. I think the world can do better without America, but America can't do without us. We were here. We built empires before even America was discovered. Pyramids of Giza, of Sudan, the Great Zimbabwe, Benin, walls of China, etc., Peru. America just came out 1776, yesterday. Man, no. We've been here much, much longer, with no smell of American dollar. Their corruption and their principles. We build these empires without them. And whatever gives them the audacity to think that their appearance yesterday can give them supernatural, God-given drive to manage the affairs of this world. But look carefully, they're driving us to the dead end of human civilization, and morality and ethics. I don't want to become part of that world. I don't wish to stay in America. I don't want to go there. The belly of the beast